The Praetorian's Daughter. Narrated by Tori. In the infancy of the Roman Republic, the Praetorian Guard exercised an almost despotic sway. In the election of the emperors, their voice was omnipotent and decisive, and in some instances they went so far as to dispose of the imperial dignity by auction, the price of their most sweet voices varying from 1 to 200 pounds sterling each. Their power, in fact, was equal to that of the janissaries of the Ottoman Empire, so boldly and laudably extinguished by the present Sultan upon his accession. Their pay and accoutrements were upon a footing with their authority. Their habiliments were, indeed, magnificent, and they lost no opportunity of displaying their importance to the eyes of the civilians by the most lavish expenditure. About the latter end of the year 192, a party of these worthy mercenaries was one evening engaged in sacrificing to Bacchus at one of the first taverns in the city, when the mirth was abruptly interrupted by the entrance of one of their comrades, a handsome man of about 40 years of age. He broke hastily into the room, his pallid features and disordered air throwing a sudden and unwelcome gloom upon the jovial company. "What ho, Marcus!" exclaimed one of the guards. "Why, man, thou art as blanched as one of Charon's passengers. What tidings?"
"Fulvia! Oh, my Fulvia!"
cried Marcus, clasping his hands desperately and looking piteously upon the group. "Fulvia? Thy daughter? Dead?" inquired a dozen voices at the same moment.
"Oh, worse than that," replied Marcus passionately. "They have torn her from me. They have trampled on my lairs, my household gods, and robbed me of my richest treasure."
"And know'st thou not the ravisher?" demanded Clymenus. "Does he live? Speak, and by the god of battles we'll draw, and never sheathe our blades till thou art avenged." "Aye," added another boldly, "were it the emperor himself." And drawing his broad steel, the whole company simultaneously followed his example, and the glittering light of their weapons flashed like gleams of lightning in the glare of the lamps.
"'Tis even he, the libertine Commodus, to whom suspicion points," replied Marcus. "Yes, my comrades, the eagle has stooped and borne away my gentle dove to his polluted nest."
"Then by Jove," exclaimed Vohunus vehemently, "this proud eagle shall anon be carrion for the vultures. What, insult a Praetorian? Is there not food enough for his lust among his slaves and the civilians, but he must pounce upon our preserves?" "Let us summon our friends," said Clymenus, "and proceed without delay to the palace and demand the instant restoration of our brother's child unharmed, or slakes our thirsty vengeance in the monster's blood." The ardent language of Clymenus found an echo in every breast, and they all agreed to depart and put their threat in execution, when Ascanius, the oldest and coolest of the company, stemmed the impetuous torment by his advice. "My dear Marcus," said he, "do not for a moment imagine that I feel thy wrongs less deeply than our comrades, but our passions may frustrate our just intentions. Let us deliberate as calmly as we can upon the best means of attaining our object. And first, let us ascertain the truth of thy suspicions."
"Alas," replied Marcus, "I fear now that they are but too well-founded. What ho, Celsus?"
he continued, and a fine athletic youth entered the room who was well known to the Praetorians as a famous wrestler.
"Here is the only witness I can produce."
Celsus briefly stated that he was loitering about the baths when he observed several of the minions of Commodus, whom he recognized, although they were purposely disguised, and that Fulvia had no sooner sallied forth with her attendant slaves than they stealthily followed, and arriving at an unfrequented spot, believing themselves free from observation, they struck down her followers, and enveloping Fulvia in an ample cloak, placed her in a covered litter and bore her rapidly away. Unseen, he followed upon their march, and observed them enter the palace of Commodus. He immediately ran to the house of Marcus to report what he had seen. He was from home, but he had the last good fortune to encounter him in the marketplace.
"Thou art a worthy fellow, Celsus," said Clymenus, "and may the wreath of victory never be plucked from thy brow in the arena. The Praetorians will back thee for this good service."
Celsus crossed his brawny arms and bowed.
"I ask no greater favor from the gods," cried he, "than an opportunity of casting this proud tyrant to the earth. With all his boasted skill in the games, he is a heartless coward. He opposed my father in the circle with a weapon of steel against one of lead, and slew him. May the curse of Tantalus light on him."
The cabal now proceeded to discuss the best means of avenging Marcus. In Celsus, they felt they had already possessed a fit tool for the execution of their machinations. Clymenus had a suitor who was a tirewoman to the Empress Marcia, and he proposed that he should endeavor through her instrumentality to obtain an audience and, if possible, excite her jealousy against her lawless and licentious spouse. Accompanied by Celsus, he repaired to the imperial palace, while Marcus and his comrade went among the Praetorian guard to prepare them for some sudden charge. Commodus had long ceased to be a favorite among the people. They loudly murmured at his exactions, his unprincipled conduct, his boundless indulgence, and utter neglect of the public weal. Devoted entirely to pleasure, the chase, and the games in the amphitheater, where he continually appeared in the degraded character of a gladiator, without the redeeming quality of the danger, for he took especial care that his royal person should be unscathed and shielded from all harm by arming his antagonists, as Celsus justly observed, with leaden weapons against his steel. Such a contemptible display to which so many victims fell a sacrifice naturally moved the anger of the Romans. On the other hand, his cold neglect and flagrant infidelity towards Marcia had long since eradicated every sentiment of respect. Affection she never entertained towards him, and Clymenus humbly, and yet in glowing eloquence, represented to her the grievous insults which Commodus had offered to his distracted comrade, and the bold determination of the whole guard to resent it. She, indignant at the outrage, at once expressed her willingness to cooperate with them in so just a measure. Summoning to her presence Electus, the emperor's chamberlain, and Latus, the Praetorian prefect, who had seen afar off, and long feared the impending danger with which the capricious conduct of the tyrant menaced them, and who were moreover better bound by the favor and confidence of Marcia to her interests, she communicated to them the facts of the abduction, the burning indignation of the guard, and the probable consequences. Having cautiously sounded these influential officers and proved their inclination to act their part in the conspiracy, she at once laid before them the plan she proposed for the immediate fulfillment of their purpose.
"In the meantime," said Clymenus boldly, "the Praetorian Guard will hold the Empress Marcia responsible for the security of Fulvia. This is the price of their future gratitude and devotion." "Rely confidently on me," replied Marcia. "That fair flower shall not even be sullied by his breath. I wear a poniard, and should all else fail, my husband shall for once make a sacrifice at the shrine of Vesta."
Clymenus bowed, and retired to report the issue of his interview to the desolate Marcus, to cheer his desponding heart with the brightening prospect of a speedy restoration of his beloved child, taking precaution, however, of leaving Celsus at the palace, and recommending the young wrestler to the service of Marcia. Soon after his departure, Commodus returned with his train from the morning's chase, exhausted and weary with the exercise of the day. After the lulling refreshment of a luxurious bath and a change of garments, Commodus, according to custom, proceeded to indulge in the pleasure of the banquet, while Marcia, more brilliant than usual, essayed all her winning arts to amuse him. Presenting him with a rich chalice of Falernian wine, which she had previously drugged, the royal hunter quaffed the draught, and instantly fell asleep upon the silken triclinium upon which he was reclining. Marcia waved her hand, and quietly dismissed the attendants. Seeking Celsus, she led him with noiseless tread into the chamber, and, pointing significantly to the slumbering tyrant, instantly vanished from the presence.
"Spirit of my murdered father!" exclaimed the youth, while the crimson blood mantled upon his brow. "Thou shalt be avenged!"
And with the ferocity of a tiger leaping upon its prey, he rushed upon the royal sleeper, and grappling him by the throat in his iron grasp, presently strangled him, and cast his lifeless body upon the floor. The report of the death of Commodus was soon spread abroad, and received by some with unfeigned pleasure, by the multitude with indifference. Fulvia was subsequently restored to the arms of her anxious parent, while Marcia retired with a handsome pension from the scene of her vices and her misfortunes. Celsus was amply avenged, and quitting the dangerous profession of a public wrestler, by the favor of Clymenus and Marcus, was enrolled in their powerful corps, where his superior strength and courage soon gained him promotion, and some few years afterwards he was fortunate enough to win the affections of Fulvia, and publicly espoused the Praetorian's daughter.